Jean-Claude Van Damme has always been a role model for me. I know that's a strange statement to make, but it's true. Now, I'm not a martial artist, and I don't actively fight or anything like that. I'm not pursuing a career as a Hollywood action star or even a stuntman. Van Damme isn't a role model for me as in I want to achieve what he has. He's a role model in that I aspire to reach his levels of determination, hustle, and drive. Now, I'd like to tell you I'm a huge fan of his work, that I own every one of his movies and watch them religiously, but I can't do that, because I think I have good taste, and almost every Van Damme movie is pretty bad. When you compare Van Damme's filmography to guys like Steven Seagal, Chuck Norris, or Dolph Lundgren, his movies suddenly don't look so bad. In fact, you can possibly argue he boasts a stronger filmography than many of his fellow action stars. But when you take that same filmography and stack it up against his more A-tier action star colleagues, guys like Stallone, Schwarzenegger, and Bruce Willis, it starts to look much worse. Van Damme just never really had hits that reached the levels of movies like Rocky, Terminator, or Die Hard. And I think the closest he ever got, ironically, was with one of his first films. And that film is Bloodsport. Bloodsport is an interesting piece of cinema. It's Van Damme's first major starring role, following his previous work as the Russian villain in No Retreat, No Surrender, and the original Predator before he walked off the project. There are varying reports on how Van Damme landed the lead role in Bloodsport. From what I can tell, he constantly followed one of the execs at Canon Films, demonstrating his martial arts moves for him. The exec was so impressed, he hired Van Damme as one of the staple actors for Canon Films. Whatever that means. Adhering to the Canon Films model of mass-producing low-budget movies in the hopes that one is a hit, Bloodsport was made on a paltry budget of $1.5 million. And the film would turn out to be one of those hits Canon was looking for, grossing over $50 million worldwide. The plot of Bloodsport goes like this. Jean-Claude Van Damme plays Frank Dukes, a former delinquent child who was taken in and trained by a martial arts master. Decades later, Frank, now a skilled martial artist himself and a soldier in the US military, learns of a mysterious, no-holds-barred, highly illegal martial arts tournament in Hong Kong known only as the Kumite. Frank travels to Hong Kong to participate in the Kumite and uphold his master's honor and legacy. There, he faces the fiercest and deadliest martial artists from around the world, all while evading two military police who are pursuing him for abandoning duty. The opening to Bloodsport is one of my favorite movie openings of all time. I'm not a fan of slow credit scroll type openings where you just get names over colored backgrounds and some music riffed. Bloodsport's opening doesn't fuck around. It immediately gets you into the movie by showing you these little vignettes of fighters training. There's so much going on in this opening. We get all these little mini intros that showcase all the unique fighters we'll get to see in the tournament. We're literally traveling the globe with each new fighter. It reminds me of Street Fighter and all the unique characters that hailed from different countries in that game. It creates this fantastic ambiance of unique fighting styles while establishing the scale of the story. I think if this film were made today, they wouldn't even bother putting this much effort in. There's no way they would spend the money to film all these little scenes. They'd probably just show a bunch of guys doing MMA in a gym. They even took the time and effort to film lots of fight scenes. Typically in a film like this, we get to see a fight or two to establish how bad the main villain is, or how high the stakes are, and then we'd see all the fights of the protagonist. Bloodsport goes a step further though. We get the obligatory high stakes / villain fight of course, we get all the protagonist fights, but then there's other little fights that take place. Neither the hero or the villain is in these scenes. It's just side characters whose names or motivations we don't even know. We get to watch them fight each other and progress in the tournament. It helps build up the scale of the Kumite and adds so much more character to this event taking place. It's a true world tournament pitting fighters from all disciplines against each other. There's traditional karate, Muay Thai, Kung Fu, bare knuckle brawlers, sumo, and even more that I can't pin down. Watching all these unique styles go up against each other is just fun. It's like a Street Fighter match brought to life. And part of what sells these fights is the people that hired to do them. Rather than just hire actors and extras, the production opted to hire real martial artists, and it shows in the timing, techniques, and fluid choreography of these fights. There's impressive physical work here, the majority of which I have to credit to Jean-Claude Van Damme. There's some things you just can't fake, and in an era of CGI dominance, I really appreciate these elements more and more. Are the fights choreographed and fake? Of course, it's a movie, but how do you fake a man performing the splits across 2 chairs?
That hurts me just looking at it.
I guess he could be supported by a wire, but he's not. This is Jean-Claude Van Damme, the master of splits. The physical mastery and body manipulation at work here is top tier. It's actually what inspired me to begin yoga and flexibility work myself. There's something about Van Damme's body manipulation and clean techniques that are just captivating to watch. And starring opposite of Van Damme is the equally captivating and fun to watch Bolo Yeung. Bolo plays the main antagonist in the film, Chong Li. Christopher Nolan talks about how Tom Hardy's performance as Bane was so strong because of the amount of emotion and personality he was able to convey while wearing a mask the entire film. Bolo is able to bring this same level of performance as the menacing Chong Li. His facial expressions and body movements tell you everything you need to know about this character without him even speaking. This guy is talented, arrogant, and absolutely ruthless, and he is a fantastic villain. I have to mention this little moment that always stuck with me. Chong Li defeats one of his opponents, and then just needlessly kills the guy right after like a gladiatorial execution. In any other film, that'd just be it. Chong Li kills the guy, main characters react shocked, and cut to the next scene. But in the world of Bloodsport, executing your opponent is a shameful act. Despite its violent and bloody nature, this is still an honorable martial arts tournament. And in this beautiful moment, the head officials and then the crowd turn their back on Chong Li to shame him. It's such a little touch that adds so much more to the film. Even as menacing and threatening as Chong Li is, he's just another fighter, and he's not bigger than the event itself. One of those other fighters happens to be an excellent side character in the film. During the tournament, Frank Dukes befriends the ogre-like Ray Jackson. Jackson is played to perfection by the talented Donald Gibb. If Frank Dukes is the calm and technical martial artist, Ray Jackson is the opposite wild brawler. Jackson's first dialogue in the film pretty much tells you everything you need to know about this guy.
Jackson, you really going to Hong Kong?
I love anything with full contact. Need a few more scars on my face.
I heard you can get killed at that Kumite.
Only if you fuck up.
He's a savage beast that enjoys the thrill of fighting. There's this great moment after Jackson defeats his first opponent. Out of nowhere, he turns around and does this.
I'm gonna kill you, man! Yeah, you, man! You got it!
After meeting and talking to Donald Gibb, I can confirm that wasn't scripted. Bolo Yeung's surprised reaction in this shot is genuine. Gibb felt his character would have sized up and called out the biggest guy in the room, so that's what he did, and it's perfect. In fact, he almost beats Chong Li. When does that ever happen? When do side characters not only challenge the main villain, but actually almost beat them? The characters in this film are just so damn fun to watch. They almost overshadow other great elements Bloodsport has, like the fantastic score by Paul Herzog and Stan Bush. The music works both to set the Eastern environment of Bloodsport, while pumping you up as you watch martial artists beat the shit out of each other. I have several of these tracks on my workout playlist. Who doesn't get fired up hearing Stan Bush's Fight to Survive?
I've worked hard every night and day, so I'm prepared to make my way. Mind and body are a perfect team. Now's my chance to live my dream.
It's interesting that Bloodsport hired actual martial artists, but still incorporated a bit of mysticism. For the most part, this is a grounded world, but Frank Dukes definitely possesses seemingly supernatural abilities that I think detract from the film's tone a bit. It doesn't ruin Bloodsport's realism, it still feels grounded and brutal to watch. It just kind of adds in a bit of cheesiness that didn't need to be there. I can look past it and appreciate it for what it is, but it might bother some people too much. You will also have to look past some terrible child acting. Yes, child actors usually suck, and Bloodsport is no exception. It's really bad.
You're not gonna call the cops?
The only other faults I have with Bloodsport is the weak subplots about the reporter love interest and the military guys trying to bring Frank back. Neither is all that interesting, and both essentially only work to pad out the film's runtime. Unlike some of the other films I've talked about on this channel, Bloodsport isn't poorly regarded per se, it's just more or less written off as a generic Jean-Claude Van Damme vehicle. But it's so much more than that. The fleshed out world, great characters, and performances elevate it to a much higher level. I've always considered it a pseudo-remake of Enter the Dragon. Both have a mysterious secret tournament where martial artists from around the world enter to see who's the best. Both have a varied and eclectic cast of characters. Interestingly, Bolo Yeung is in both films, playing a henchman in Enter the Dragon and the main villain in Bloodsport. There's even a nod to Enter the Dragon in Bloodsport. In Enter the Dragon, the menacing henchman O'Hara tries to intimidate Bruce Lee, and this happens.
Boards don't hit back.
In Bloodsport, after Jean-Claude Van Damme breaks a brick with his hands, this happens.
Very good. But brick, not hit back.
It's such a cool little homage to Enter the Dragon, and it's even cooler that the cast member who is actually in Enter the Dragon utters Bruce Lee's famous line. And while I love Enter the Dragon, Bloodsport does a much better job showing you an actual martial arts tournament. We get to see lots more matches from all the entrants, not just the main characters, and it all culminates in a final showdown. Whereas Enter the Dragon ends up devolving into a Bruce Lee action thriller and basically forgets the tournament altogether. The tournament in Enter the Dragon is a framing device for the revenge plot, while it's the central plot in Bloodsport. I also think Bloodsport is the best live-action Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat adaptation we've gotten to date. What is Street Fighter if not an eclectic group of martial artists from around the world fighting in a tournament for supremacy? And I know Mortal Kombat was originally a video game adaptation of Bloodsport before becoming its own thing, but to date, none of the live-action Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter adaptations have gotten the tournament right. They always just end up devolving into random fights and plots that ignore the tournament structure altogether.
Is this a joke? This money isn't worth the paper it's printed on.
On the contrary, every bison dollar will be worth 5 British pounds. For that is the exchange rate the Bank of England will set once I've kidnapped their queen.
They've both forgotten the basic concept it was based on. A simple world martial arts tournament where unique and interesting fighters faced off in a showcase of athleticism and ability. And that's what's fun to watch. And that's why I think Bloodsport is collection worthy. Thanks for watching. It feels really good to finally get a new video out. I'm definitely going to work on dedicating more time for these. For the tens of people who actually watch my videos, you might have noticed I changed the name of this video series from underrated to collection worthy. I was never really satisfied with underrated as the name of a video series. I think it's a bit too generic and simple. Collection worthy is a term I use all the time. What I'm referring to is my actual physical collection of movies, video games, and toys. For a movie to be collection worthy for me, it has to be infinitely rewatchable and enjoyable every time. That's a high bar, but with the size of my physical collection, I take it very seriously. These are the movies that have earned a place on my shelf, and I have a lot more to discuss, so stay tuned.